हेलो दोस्तों, इस वीडियो में बात करेंगे इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन आंसर्स की MEG 108 अमेरिकन पोइट्री। वीडियो को कंप्लीट जरूर देखिएगा। चैनल पर नए हैं तो सब्सक्राइब कर लीजिए, बेल नोटिफिकेशन को जरूर ऑन रखिएगा। इग्नू से जुड़ी हुई सभी जानकारी आपको चैनल पर समय समय पर देखने को मिलती रहेगी। कोई भी इंपॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन आप स्किप नहीं करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, हम बात कर रहे हैं MEG 108 की। ये सैंपल पेपर हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं golibaba.com से। अगर आप पूरा हेल्प बुक चाहते हैं तो आप परचेज कर सकते हैं। फ्रेंड्स, फ्लैट 50% पर आपको ऑफर किया जा रहा है। MA इंग्लिश का ये सब्जेक्ट है। अगर आपके पास ये सब्जेक्ट है तो वीडियो को कंप्लीट जरूर देखिएगा। हेल्प बुक का लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिया गया है, वहां से डायरेक्टली ओपन कर लीजिए। फ्रेंड्स, अब बात कर रहे हैं सॉल्व सैंपल पेपर की। राइट एसे ऑन द फॉलोइंग्स। सबसे पहला टॉपिक आपको दिया गया है अमेरिकन लिटरेचर। जैसे कि आपकी बुक का नाम है अमेरिकन पोएट्री। अमेरिकन लिटरेचर के बारे में सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन आपको आ सकता है, जो है अमेरिकन लिटरेचर इज अ लिटरेचर रिटन और प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका एंड in the colonies that preceded it। सबसे पहले यही बताया गया है यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका में जो लिटरेचर लिखा गया, बनाया गया, जो उनकी कॉलोनीज में प्रेसिडेड हुआ, वही अमेरिकन लिटरेचर है। द अमेरिकन लिटरेरी ट्रेडिशन thus is a part of a broader tradition of English language literature but also includes literature of other traditions produced in the United States and in other immigrants language। American literature, like other national literatures, was shaped by the history of the country that produced it। America was essentially a collection of colonies distributed throughout the eastern seaboard on the North American continent for about a century and a half। After a successful rebellion against the motherland, the America became the United States, a nation। By the end of the 19th century, this nation extended southwards to the Gulf of Mexico, northward to the 49th parallel, and westward to the Pacific. By the end of the 19th century, it had also taken its place against the powers of the world. Its fortunes so interrelated with those of other nations that inevitably it became involved in two world wars, and following these conflicts with the problems of Europe and East Asia. Meanwhile, the advent of science and industry, as well as changes in the people's thinking and feelings, caused many changes in their lives। All of these elements in the evaluation of the United States shape the country's literature। अमेरिकन लिटरेचर की यहाँ पर बात की गई है। अमेरिकन लिटरेचर कैसे प्रोड्यूस हुआ, क्या बैकग्राउंड था, क्या हिस्ट्री रही, अमेरिका की क्या हिस्ट्री रही, अमेरिका को कैसे यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका का खिताब मिला। ऑल ऑफ दीज एलिमेंट्स इन द इवेल्युएशन ऑफ यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स शेप द कंट्रीज लिटरेचर। द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज अमेरिकन पोएट्री। American poetry refers to the poetry of the United States. It arose first as efforts by American colonists to add their voices to English poetry in the 17th century, well before the constitutional unification of the 13 colonies. Although a strong oral tradition often likened to poetry already exists among Native American societies, most of the early colonist work was similar to the contemporary English models of poetic form, diction, and theme. However, in the 19th century, an American idiom began to emerge. By the later part of that century, poets like Walt Whitman were winning an enthusiastic audience abroad and had joined the English language avant-garde. Much of the American poetry published between 1910 to 1945 remained lost in the pages of small circulation political periodicals, particularly the one of the far left destroyed by librarians during the 1950s McCarthy era. Modernist poets like Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1948, are often cited as creative and influential English language poets of the first half of the 20th century. African American and women poets were published and read widely in the same period, but were often somewhat prejudicially marginalized by the 1960s. The Beat movement and Black Mountain poets had developed new models for poetry, and their contemporaries influenced the British poetry revival. Towards the end of the millennium, consideration of the American poetry had diversified as scholars placed an increased emphasis on the poetry by women, African American, Hispanics, Chicagoans, Native Americans, and other ethnic groups. Louis Gluck is the only contemporary American writer writing primarily poetry who has been awarded the Nobel Prize in the Literature by Bob Dylan, a folk rock songwriter and poet, has been awarded the same prize. What do you mean by the post-colonialism? Discuss about the post-colonial theory. So here is the answer. यहाँ पर आप देख पा रहे हैं. The next question is describe the beginning of the modern literature in America. Grasp the historical and social concept of modern American poetry. Briefly discuss the background to the American drama. Write short notes on American drama. Discuss the theme, structure, and interpretation of the poem The Wild Honeysuckle. How does Philip Freneau impress the Americans for a revelation in his poem The Wild Honeysuckle? Give biography of Phillis Wheatley. Briefly give the summary of the poem On Being Brought from Africa to America by Phillis Wheatley. So यहाँ पर हमने आपके सामने 8 क्वेश्चंस शेयर किए जो कि विद आंसर्स हैं. इस पीडीएफ को डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं गोली बाबा के ऑफिशियल टेलीग्राम चैनल से. टेलीग्राम चैनल का लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिया गया है और आप बाकी सभी आंसर्स को भी वहां से देख सकते हैं, समझ सकते हैं. So thank you so much for watching the video till end. See you soon in the next video. All the best for examinations.